Okay, shalom, dear friends. A bit of a sad note. I was just informed that a friend of ours from Riverdale, a young man, 27 years old, was passed away. He only got married a few years ago. As soon as he got married, he was diagnosed with Yena Machala, with that particular disease. We don't even like to say the name of it, the one that starts with a C. And he just passed away. And a member of the family, Klal Yisrael is one family, beside Guf Echad, and therefore we're dedicating the Shir Le'ilui Nishmas Yosi B'Tzalel Ben Nachman, that his neshama should be in the highest places in Gan Eden, receiving eternal reward, Bezrat Hashem. And the learning should be for his schus, for his merit. You have to know that what we do down here affects all the worlds. That's why we said so many times when the Vilna Gaon was on his deathbed, so he was looking at his tzitzis and he said, oh my goodness, he was crying. He said, for a couple pennies that I could put on tzitzis and get eternal reward, but where I'm going, I can't do that anymore. And that's one of the reasons when we go to a cemetery that the custom is to tuck in the tzitzis. We actually tuck in our tzitzis so that the people who have passed away don't see that we're able to do mitzvahs and they can't. Maligim alamesim, it's like as if making fun of, God forbid. Because all they want to do is just come back to this world for 1 second to do a mitzvah. That's in that world everything is clear. In this world it's murky, we don't always know, and that's why the more a person learns Torah and does mitzvahs, he's accruing eternal reward. And if you can direct that to people that have passed on, you can help them to elevate. I want to see a piece in Rebbe Nachman, a very deep Torah. It might take us more than one shir to do it. It's Reish Mem Hey, 245, Reish Mem Hey. It's very, this is where you just start to see how, Rebbe Nachman, he'll take you all the way. Rebbe Nachman, he speaks about everything. A very, very deep Torah. And everything that Rebbe Nachman's talking about is also, he's hinting to things, and there's just a simple layer, and then there's all the layers of Kabbalah, and then that are just so beyond. We're just going to begin to experience this. So says the Rebbe, Da. Let me explain many times Rebbe Nachman says Da. At the beginning of a Torah, it means that he's pulling this down from the highest place of Atzilus. And it also means you have to open your heart. Because you have to make a connection, thank you Avram, between your head and your heart. Das is the ability to connect. We're going to talk about it more in Tanya. Das is a connection between the head and the heart. It makes a link between what I know in my head and what I actually live in my heart. So Rebbe Nachman's saying, don't just know the following thing in your brain. I want you to really feel this emotionally. So says Rebbe Nachman, Da. Sheyesh Chedrei Torah. There's something called chambers. Chambers. The Torah exists in chambers. Chambers and more chambers and more chambers. It's Torah 245, Reish Mem Hey. You might be in the second book, it's in the first book. Reish Mem Hey. You should know that there's these chambers, that the Torah is like a palace. And when you start learning Torah, you go from chamber to chamber to chamber. If people are shluffing, you can maybe turn off. I think the heat is on, you can just turn it off. It's making everybody sleepy. So you go from chamber to chamber to chamber. When you start learning Torah, when you really get into it, you realize that the Torah is taking you to these chambers. And it's like it's this huge, endless palace. And you first go into one chamber, and then you open up the doors there, and you see all the brilliant things in that chamber, and all the gold and the silver and the Bitcoin, everywhere. And then you go into another chamber, and then another chamber, and the chambers lead to other chambers and secret passageways. The Torah is all about these chambers. You just go through, and you don't even know you've gotten so far into this universe, chamber upon chamber. Umisha Zaychalahem, and a person who is meritorious to learn the Torah properly and to go through these chambers. Rabbi Yehuda will say something and he takes you into one chamber, and all of a sudden then he links you to another chamber, and then from there you go to another chamber, and he's pulling you into all these chambers, and then all of a sudden there's a trap door that he just pulls you, and you start seeing how things link together, and you don't even know where you got, and then you're standing in some palace, and you're so far in, he's like, oh, you're here also? Yeah. He pulled me over here years ago. Yeah, it's unbelievable. And a person who's zaycha to this, specifically when you start to innovate in your Torah learning, when you start to see the Torah in innovative ways, that when you're in a chamber and then you have an einfall, you think of something innovative in the Torah, all of a sudden you didn't see it, but a door appears before you and you can go through that door to a new chamber. All of the innovation of Torah is going to new chambers. That's why when you are thinking about something, let's say you're reading a Chumash with Rashi on a Friday night, even though we try to read Chumash during the day, but let's say it's Chumash with Rashi on a Friday night, and you're just sitting in the base bench, and all of a sudden just something goes off, a light in your head, and you feel like you've entered a new chamber. Because you're just thinking about something, you just want to tell all the guys in the basement, do you know what this Rashi is really saying? It's like, wow, awesome, bro, that was so amazing. And then he says something and he pulls you into another chamber, and you're just going deeper into this palace. Hu nichnas b'chadarim, you're going more chambers. V'nichnas mecheder lecheder u'mecheder lecheder. You just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. And when you have that innovation, you didn't see it before. It looked like a plain wall. But all of a sudden, something opens up and you see these gates and you just walk through. As soon as you have a chiddush, you see something novel, you innovate something, you can walk through. Ki b'kol cheder v'cheder yishkam v'kam pesachim lechadar macherim. And even in each cheder, the rooms are so big, there's many ways to go. There's a lot of doors. Some of them you have the keys, some of them you don't. Some of them you can go through, some of them you don't even notice the doors. And they go this endless passageways of going and finding these amazing things. And you end up in places where all of a sudden you go through one door and you just see like mountains and waterfalls. And it's like, you walk through the mountain valleys, it's all chambers. And you open up one and you're like in space X. And that's just another chamber. And then you get to some planet and you open up a door there. And then all of a sudden you're on the other side of the galaxy. And in that place you see a whole bunch of other chambers. And then you hang up with aliens next thing you know. And then just chambers and chambers and chambers. And then even from those ones, from those other planets, more chambers and more, just endless. I love that language. And when you're really getting into learning, what are you doing? You're just going from chamber to chamber and you're just having a tiyul. You're just, I could go to Hershey Park for a tiyul and all the pretzes, or I could go through the chambers of Torah. I can go chambers upon chambers upon chambers into other universes. Wherever Elon Musk thinks he could take you, nothing compared to this. This is way beyond that. This is beyond the galaxy. We're talking about beyond whatever the Hubble telescope took, that big picture they took, and it shows where we are on the whole thing. That's just one of the chambers. After you open up the end of the Hubble telescope picture, that's the beginning of the journey of where Torah takes you, because Torah is beyond this world. And you start going on a tiyul, you're matayil bekulam. Umelaket misham, look at the language of Rabbeinu. And you start gathering from there, oitzrais usegulais yakarais vechamudais me'ay. And you gather from there these treasures, gold, but more precious than gold, diamonds more precious than that, even more precious than Bitcoin. Sugulois yakarais. Very precious stuff. Ashrei chelkai. Ashrei chelkai. Rebbe Nachman says, if you're one of these ones who are going to all these places, Ashrei chelkai. You're on the right track. If Rebbe Nachman says Ashrei chelkai, whatever he says Ashrei chelkai, just do that. Okay, but now it gets really juicy. Avalda. Okay, when he says avalda, it means I told you something that was already very profound. However, you need to be careful, and you need to take what I'm about to tell you to heart as well. Avalda. Shetzarech li zahir me'oid. You have to be very careful when you're going through these chambers. Leval yitte ba'atzmai, not to err. There's some inherent danger. Everything sounded so nice until now, right? Rebbeinu, I was really, you gave me this beautiful image, even nicer than Hershey Park, this is much more pleasant, this is great. What's the big, what's the Tzarech Lizah? Why do I have to be so careful? What's going on? You're scaring me, Rebbeinu. What's going on? It's not so simple. You don't so quickly get the keys to all these chambers. You're not flying through the galaxy and getting all these precious treasures of Hashem just overnight. It doesn't happen so fast. There's a process here. There's something that takes time. Because sometimes when you actually are machadesh Torah, remember we said, when you go through all the different chambers, that's because you're starting to have novel ideas in your learning. You're thinking about new things. It takes you another chamber, and you're so deep. It's like learning Ian, right? Ian, the Rebbe takes you 50 steps down the rabbit hole, and you're so far down through so many chambers. And you see the Gemara, and you see two pshat in the Gemara, and you see Taisus, and you see Rabbi Kiva Eger's Kash on Taisus, then Tanei Shu on Rabbi Kiva Eger, and then Rabbi Chaim Brisker, and then all the Rosh Yeshivas on Rabbi Chaim Brisker, and then Rabbi Yegoda's pshat and the Rosh Yeshivas on Rabbi Chaim Brisker, and then your pshat and Rabbi Yegoda's pshat on the Rosh Yeshivas pshat on Rabbi Chaim's Tzvei Dinim, on the Pnei Yeshua, on Rabbi Akiva, on the Taisus, on Abaya and Rava, on the Gemara of Hashem. And there's so many steps down. But you have to be aware that when you start making your chidushim in Torah, when you start having these novel insights, how do you know they're authentic? How do you know when you get to a door, when you get to the chamber, that you should go through that door? How do you know that's the right door to go through? Bless you. Maybe that door was not a good door. Maybe that door took you somewhere that looked very nice. Anyone who was with us when we were learning The Last Princess, if anybody remembers, when our hero of the story got to the palace of the no good one, did it look nice? It looked exceedingly beautiful. It looked very nice when he got there. But was it good? It was so bad. But it looked so good. It looked so good. So how do I know that when I get into a chamber that it's good? Maybe there's hackers. Maybe there's smoke and mirrors. Maybe what I'm saying in my Torah is not coming from the right place. It's coming from a not good place. Can I ask one of the chevra, maybe Doron, a very big favor? Right above you is a Tanakh. You don't mind? Right there, literally, perfect. How do I thank you so much? Thank you very much. How do I know that when I go through these chadarim, that I'm in the right place? Maybe I just went into a cheder that's not good. Maybe I went to a place that's not good at all. Look what the prophet Isaiah says. Isaiah 5:20. Haya ein melora toiv v'latoiv ra. Samim chayshech la'or v'or l'chayshech. Samim mar l'masok u'masok l'mar. Woe! It's a great word. Woe to those who speak of evil as good. They say evil things, but they say that it's good. And good and good is evil, and they say good things are really evil, they seem to say the opposite. All the things that are really evil, they say it's good, it's very good. And all the things that are good, it's evil, it's evil. Woe to the ones who make darkness into light. Oh, this stuff, there's so much light here. No, it's dark. So much light here. And light into darkness. Oh, it's very dark. It's very dark. You shouldn't, don't go there. That's not a good thing to do. It's very dangerous. Don't go there. Don't do that. It's light. No, it's darkness. They make bitter into sweet. It's very bitter. No, it's sweet. Have some. Sweet. Nah, it's horrible. I'm telling you, if I ate like a piece of junk food right now, it tastes like garbage. It's horrible. Stuff is disgusting. Right? You give a guy a piece of junk food who lives on junk food, he's like, oh, it's delicious. You give him like a nice collard green salad with kale, good stuff, hemp oil on there, apple cider vinegar with the mother, 424 salt, because like, oh, it's bitter. It's so good. It is delicious. The candy, yeah. They make Doron's loving that. Bitter into sweet and sweet into bitter. This is what the prophet said. This is the words of the Navi. And by the way, why do we only have these Nevi'im? How many Nevi'im do we have? Tanakh, the 24 prophets. Why these 24? The Gemara says there was thousands, millions of prophets of Hashem. Not false prophets. Real prophets. So the Gemara answers that these were the prophecies that would go on forever. These prophecies that we have in our Tanakh were the ones that would be relevant for all future generations. And that's why the canon was created, that for all future generations we should have these prophets, because every letter they're saying to us is alive, is vital. Which means the prophet is talking about woe, not woe like whoa, but woe, W-O-E. It's like biblical language. Woe. Woe, hoi. Woe to the one. In our language, you'd say something like, ooh, like I feel that's not good. Bad move, bad strategy. It's not going to end up well for you. Like that would be the way we'd say it in modern parlance. You're not going in a good direction for your eternal destiny. If you're somebody that makes things that are good into bad and bad into good and sweet into bitter and bitter into sweet and light into dark and dark into light. Look what Rebbe Nachman says, back inside Rebbe Nachman. When you're going through these chambers, okay, we're back in our chambers, he said you have to be very careful. There's certain things that a person might say, they don't actually come from the true chambers of Torah. Rather, where do they emanate from? This might be the first time you're going to hear this concept. It's a very deep idea. They come from the chamber of exchanges. So you might say, what does that mean? This is a concept from Kabbalah that's discussed quite a bit in Rebbe Nachman. He wrote a story called The Exchanged Children, where I'll give you this basic meaning, is that the king had a son, and the maidservant had a son, and the nurse, when they were born, switched them. And the maidservant's son grew up as the prince, and the true prince grew up with the maidservant. And only she knew the secret. And the events that transpire afterwards are of the greatest secrets of Torah. And Rebbe Nachman has a whole story about that. And this is called the chamber of exchanges, where essentially things that are good, i.e. the nobility of the prince, gets put into a place that's very lowly. And something which is very lowly and coarse grows up in the king's house and looks like it's very good. And this is a place that confuses us. That if a person is going through these chambers, he might not realize, but he opens up a door and he ends up in not the chambers of true Torah, but the chamber of exchanges, where all of a sudden he's being fed a lie. And he's going to start saying Torah that's not coming from the right place, because his Torah is getting swapped, and the other dark side is putting their Torah into his mouth. So it could be he's saying Torah and halacha in the name of Torah, but from not the right place, because he got stuck in the chamber of exchanges. Just like the king's son who was taken and grew up in the other family, and the story of how he finds his way home, that the secret came out of really what happened, and the prince coming back to his rightful position. Look what Rebbe Nachman says. Because Hashem made everything in this world we know, it's a verse from King Solomon in Koheles, Zayin Yud Daled, that in order for us to have free will in this world, there has to be an option. I could choose, God forbid, evil, or I could choose good. If I didn't have those two options, would you ever have free will? No, because free will exists, that I have two people selling their wares. One's trying to tell me that this is good, the other one's trying to tell me that this is good. And really one is disguised. By me not falling into the deception of the lies and choosing the true good, Hashem's good, I earn that good. It becomes mine. So when a person's journeying in his journey through Torah, he might get to certain chambers where there's switch, and he's going to be fed something which is not coming from a good place. And he has to know how to navigate. Am I saying the emes Torah? Am I really saying true Torah emes? Or is this coming from the chamber of exchanges? And something's been, they pulled a fast one on me, and I'm saying things that aren't really emes. A few years ago, I remember I started to learn about this. I got so scared, I ran to the tzaddikim. I was basically crying. I said, please, just give me a bracha that I should say Torah's emes, that I shouldn't say the Torah from the chamber of exchanges. I went to Rav Scheinberger here in the old city. I said, Rabbi, please. It's like, you should be gebenched. Like, don't worry about it too much. I was like, I don't want to say, from the chamber of exchanges. And I went to Ichimar, please, that it should only be Torah's emes and Torah's emes. It's like, don't worry about it so much. But when you read this, you're like, oh my goodness, I don't want to get duped by the chamber of exchanges. Like, there's a scariness, a feeling I go to a place and they're telling me this is good, but it's really not good. It's really not good. This is what the Navi is talking about. That they're telling you something is good, and you're saying it in the name of Torah, but it's coming from a bad place. Rebbe Nachman is going to teach us how to get out of this. The simplest way is you have to cry out to Hashem, I just want to say the Torah of emes, to daven for the Torah. Please, Hashem. I want to say true Torahs, please. It should be emes Torah. You should know, guys, now the world, and girls, the world is such a crazy place. The world needs, and we're davening right now, that all of our Torah should be a Torah's emes. And of course, staying close to the tzaddikim, is they keep you linked up to the Torah of emes. Not to get, God forbid, caught up in the chamber of exchanges, which he's going to talk about later. If a person gets caught up in one of those chambers, it's easy to hang out there for a while. And a person could say all sorts of chidushim in that chamber, but it's coming from the other side because they flipped it. And once you already get into a role in the chamber of exchanges, it's hard to extricate oneself in that place. So a person needs to just cry out, Hashem, please help me say the Torah of emes. Help the true Torah come out into the world. And when that comes out, there's going to be chambers upon chambers. And when Mashiach comes, he's going to reveal this greatest secrets that ever existed. The true place and the true chamber of exchange is going to be eliminated once and for all. But now, until Mashiach comes, there's still a chamber of exchanges to be careful of. So, Bezrat Hashem, let's cry out to Hashem. Let us say the Torah of emes. Be close to tzaddikim, amitim, like the Sfas emes, whose yurtzeit is today, is mamish right now. We should be makusher, connected to the tzaddikim, amitim, and the Torah's emes. Amen. Have a wonderful day, Chevra. Part 2 tomorrow.